All right, here we go. Investors, welcome back to the channel. It is a privilege and an honor to have with me today the Dividend Diplomats. As you know, my channel is all about stock ideas and economic insights, and there are no two better guests that I can have on today's episode here than the Dividend Diplomats. Here with me, we have Lanny and Bert. Now, the question right out of the bat, guys, I have to know, what's the backstory here? How did you two meet? How did you start this YouTube channel? I mean, it's pretty atypical to always have the two of you on, but you're making it happen. And that is the first question I think we're all dying to know.
I'll kick it off here. First off, Ari, congrats to you. You're killing it. Content machine, investing machine. We were just talking briefly before we started. Definitely humbled and honored to be on here. And this might be the first time, the Diplomats have been a guest on a show. So
the first, but hopefully not the last here.
Yeah. Hopefully not. You might see too much of Bert the Herd and Lanny over here. But yeah, I mean, first Bert and I, we met, gosh, what is it now? Has it been about 11 years?
Yeah, it was 2012. And it was like August of 2012. So
we both came in public accounting together. I started a year before him. He came in a year after.
Yeah.
And I think I was set up as like your coach or your mentor.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. So the first time I met Lanny, like this was like right when I started, and yeah, we all had a bunch of jobs together, but we immediately, we traveled a lot. So that's going to be part of the story at the beginning. First time I met Lanny, he just rolled up to my house at like 6 a.m. in his, what was it? He was like 97 Toyota Celica. Yeah, she was a beaut. 97 Toyota Celica. And he's like, hop on in. We're about to drive 3 hours together. And then we just went on our merry way. And the rest was history.
Yeah, the first one of the big topics on that journey was talking and preaching about dividend investing to Bert. Yeah. Because I hadn't started investing back in, early 09, and really started to get into dividend investing in like 2010. So it was always hard to find, as you probably can imagine, Ari, you were probably in the similar shoes, finding dividend investors and having people not only understand investing, but then that niche of dividend investing. Yeah. So Bert was hooked immediately right in. I think almost like after that conversation on that drive for 3 to 4 hours. And then pretty much less than 2 years later, we started the Dividend Diplomats blog in 2014. And then, fast,
right?
And Seeking Alpha were on there. Yeah. We started, all that content comes on there from our blog. So we've been almost at it for 10 years from content. And then fast forward 6 years after that, YouTube channel was finally dropped. And now we're just having fun writing and producing videos.
Yeah. There you have it. If you haven't seen, of course, their YouTube videos, you've certainly probably read their articles. I know I have on Seeking Alpha, but I didn't even know you two had a blog as well. So I'll have to add it to my list and certainly include that in the description.
It's a tough
comment.
Tough name to remember, Ari. It's dividenddiplomats.com. In case you're wondering.
I almost forgot who I was speaking with.
Yeah. But I mean, that's really how it all started. It was just all those car rides together. It was just, we started talking investing, as Lanny said, I got hooked on it. Obviously Lanny was already, and it was just it was a lot of time to talk through strategy, what it's like to live off of income one day, and why it's so important to start the dividend snowball early. That's where it really started to happen. And then it turned into, what stocks are we buying? What are we doing here? And then it just kind of evolved from there.
So the first, I want to ask another question here, a follow-up for this backstory. Number one, Lanny, where were you with your portfolio at that point in time? And Bert, did you have any reservations or fear? Because you got Lanny pulling up at like 6 a.m. and he's like talking dividends, here's what we should be doing. Here's what I'm buying. What were the thoughts there for you, Bert?
No, I mean, honestly, for me, the thoughts were, it all made sense. I mean, it's the stuff that we talk about all the time. It's like, Lanny wasn't like, hey, here's this penny stock that might pay a dividend 5 years from now. Let's get in right now while it's at 1 cent. It was just look around you on the drive. Look at everything that we're passing that has it. We're driving by factories. We're driving by all these stores. It's like you buy those companies. You buy those companies that have shown through years and years that they can keep increasing that dividend through good times and bad. Like, it's not hard. It wasn't hard for me to get hooked because it just made sense.
Sure. And by that point in time, Lanny, how long had you been investing, and what was your portfolio, the size of your portfolio?
So this is what, 2012, when I met Bert and talking to Bert about the whole plan. And I was actually looking back through some files here because I started taking like screenshots, but unfortunately I wasn't taking screenshots of my Excel portfolio from that time. But I'll say this, in 2012, I was all about this then, and I only earned that year $957 in dividends.
Let's go.
But like in 2012, I was like, I don't care what I'm earning now, because I know in, a dozen, 20 more years from now, it's going to be, much higher than that. And, you fast forward 10 years from 2012 to 2022, in just my portfolio, I am married. She has her investments accounts as well, but just in mine in 2022, it's fast forward 10 years later, again, barely $1,000, not even $1,000 in 12, but over $26,000 earned in 2022.
Wow. Talk about
growth, just doing the same things then that, then I'm still doing it now.
Yeah.
I want to jump into the present moment, I guess, now, and talk about, right, our portfolios as of right now. All full disclosure, and I think every video I always share kind of where I'm at for a snippet of the clip. Right now, I'm hovering around 123,000 within my brokerage account. Now, I have, my savings account, the 401k, and emergency fund. So all in, I'm around 180,000, but different accounts. There's a point of me that wants to throw it all into my Vanguard account, but life will hand you lemons. Sometimes I have to play it safe. And I want to ask you to where you currently stand within your brokerage accounts and all in, and you can ballpark it.
Sure. I'll kind of rip the Band-Aid first here, guys. Hit my theme music, Stone Cold style, walking out on this one. But so like my taxable brokerage account, and again, this is pretty close, to up to date as possible. Again, we'll just talk about mine, not like the combined file. So when you see a lot of on our videos and our blog, I usually just cover like mine. Maybe our dividend income posts on the blog is combined, but our portfolio is you're just going to see mine on the blog. So we'll just stick with mine. My taxable account is around 530,000. So again, this goes back. This is 13 plus years of pouring money into it. So it's not like I don't make $1 million. I don't make $300,000. I don't make 200,000. So I'm not like this. I didn't inherit this. In fact, I grew up, as poor as can be, but just knew I didn't want that life. So we hustle, I hustle, I sell things online. So a lot of dollars go right into the taxable account. So 530,000, give or take. And then the retirement accounts, so like the 401ks, because I have the old one, I have a current one, and the IRAs, all in total there. Again, you can grip your seat here, but it's definitely over 400,000.
Let's go! Wow,
make some noise, guys.
Yeah, and for me, my I'll stick with mine too. I put both of my wife and I on our website, but I'll just go with mine for now. My taxable, my traditional one is just about 220,000 right now. So that's where I stand there, but all in with a 401k, Roth, and everything else. I just crossed 500,000 on our last update. So the last update was, I haven't updated it yet through this week, but it was 501 as of last weekend. So we just hit that, and overall income is almost 14,000 for just like my set of house for the investment.
And Bert, and how many years have you been going at it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started when I met you, so I was at zero. Like it was like 0 in 2012. So,
but the Bank of America stock.
Oh, that's true. You're right. Okay, that's the one.
Bank of America. What?
Yeah, my grandma got me for my bar mitzvah. My cousin and she got us some shares of Bank of America, and I've just had that one forever. It's been a legacy. I refuse to let it go. It's now 12.162 shares of Bank of America. That's just hanging tight in there. So
wow. Have you just held on to it? Have you been adding to the position, or you're just from grandma? It was a gift from grandma. That was it.
I almost did last month. I came really close to adding to the Bank of America position. I thought about it, but I didn't do it. I bought plenty of other bank stocks and instead. But
you're right up there with Warren Buffett at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I have to sell all my stocks, I'm still going to keep those 12 shares of Bank of America. So if I sell everything one day, it'll be nothing plus 12 Bank of America shares.
It's a grave.
It will be you and Warren just holding on.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
Lanny actually started talking a little bit about how he was hustling before even, I think, dividend investing, right? You were always working hard and grinding. Actually raised a question on my end. I can think back for as far back as I can remember, being 7 or 8 years old and shoveling driveways, in the winter time for people, waxing cars, walking dogs, pulling weeds, you name it. I was doing it to make money.
Awesome.
And I wish I knew, of course, at that time, dividend investing, duh.
Yeah.
But as a 7, 8-year-old, and I didn't have a SOPTA grandmother at, my bar mitzvah, Bank of America. But I want to ask, what was it that it seems, and I'm sure both of you were working hard your entire life. What was it that inspired you about dividend investing? Because I feel like today and it's probably been forever, right? But we're so attracted to the allure of jumping in on, growth stocks, tech stocks now, right? AI. But what is it, or what was it rather, about dividend investing that pulled the both of you in?
I mean, for me, this one, it was simple. It was the income stream. It's just always having that steady flow of the income stream. And it's been there through good times and bad and different parts of it too. So I was saying I'm going to have $14,000 at some point if just an income stream. Right now, that's assuming no growth, no cuts, anything else, no reinvestment, just always going to be there. So if something happens, you need some money, you have some fun, for some reason you get laid off, it's just something's always there for you. And that's really what it was. It's this stable income stream. And then obviously too, one day that'll be large enough where you don't have to worry about anything else. It'll cover your expenses. You can just live off of it. That's really the piece of it too. So it's there to supplement while you're growing it, but then it can become your primary source, and then you can pursue whatever you want to and whatever excites you once it can cover your expenses.
Sure.
Ari, I guess to, answer the question from my standpoint, gosh, this does go way back. And again, I was probably an odd player out there when you think about it, because probably when I was 18 or 19, again, this goes back, I'll say that's over 15 years ago, full disclaimer. I'm not 40, but I'm not 30. But I read about the concept of like passive income then. And really two people stuck out to me. I think everybody knows about Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all those books that he's written, just to give you more of that mentality about cash flow. And then, I don't know if anybody's ever ran into Pat Flynn. You could look him up. He's been one of these guys that created like this passive income blog, and just really all about different income sources that can, obviously pay for your life. And I knew then, like, I needed that. Like, I want that, because having 2 to 3 jobs, from the age of 13, 14, all the way through, after school, went into public accounting, obviously went down to 1 job then, but
like the most
it was all about
job, by the way.
What was that?
It's like the most risk averse job you can ever take in accounting. Both of you.
So I knew then that, okay, I needed to create passive income. And then it just became, the library was like one of my best friends, because all the free literature that's out there, because you don't need the finance degree. You don't need the accounting degree. You don't need the MBA, degree to know about investing, So I started reading almost every book you can imagine. And, Bert, I think one of the gifts I got you while we were at public accounting was like the little book series books. Yeah. So there's like the little book on investing, the little book on big dividends. So the concept of dividends made sense to me because it's passive income source. And, you know, I was hooked on it right from like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. That's literally, I want to say that's my story. Like, I think I started reading about FIRE, and that was like the driver. And I think it was in like high school. I remember a friend handed me the book by Robert Kiyosaki, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So here, read this. We were in a finance class, which barely taught finance, right? It was like the bare bones
Right.
minimum.
Yeah.
And I read that. I think that hooked me. And, you know, I said I worked a lot of jobs as this little kid. I had quite a lot of money as this little kid. I always had a fear to actually put my money into, you know, even the money market. I remember being a little kid and I had a safe actually with all my cash.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I went to my dad and my mom and I wanted to deposit it into the bank. I even had a fear to do that because I didn't want anyone touching my money. But finally, when I got to investing, it was in college. And Lanny, you and I were talking about this just briefly before we started here. My very first position was with an index fund, the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund, ticker symbol VTI. It is still in my account there, my largest position. But I want to know, you know, when you guys first started investing, what were the positions that you started with?
Oh,
Aside from Bert's bar mitzvah.
yeah. Yeah.
No, and no, guys, I wasn't 100% invested into WWE stock. So, yeah, I know we get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions like, oh man, how many shares do you own of Vince McMahon's company? You know, so one of the, you know, I'll take the first hit here because I still own some of these first stocks that I've owned. The first dividend stock positions that I bought probably back in 2009 and 10 were, you know, Pfizer back in the low to mid teens, Visa stock back when they were in the, before any splits were happening, but probably in the 60s, Lockheed Martin back when they were, you know, very low, I'll say. And, you know, I've just continued to own, those are some of my very first few stocks, still own them today.
Wow.
And, you know, the only company that I've ever added back to has been Pfizer as of late, you know, at that 36, 35 mark. So Lockheed, you know, and my investment purchases are hilarious. Like I somehow scrambled up together. And again, this is back when trading cost like 10 or 15 bucks to do. So you weren't going to, you know, buy one share at 67 bucks and pay 10 bucks to do it. But I scrambled together $372, I guess, and bought Visa. But that $372 is worth over $5,500 now.
Wow.
And, you know, Lockheed, you know, scraped together over probably a course of months and months and months, like $2,005.73 to the T.
Wow.
And that's worth over 19 grand.
Wow.
Yeah.
So some of the longest and oldest are worth some of the most in my portfolio.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's not the case for me because my original ones have not performed that well. One of my first ones was AT&T, and I think we all know that story. I had them around. I did get them around $26 a share, so I'm in the red on that one.
I think we all are.
Yeah,
no, let us know in those comments.
Yeah, Shell was one of the other ones, so that was one of them. I'm trying to remember what some of the other big ones were. It was pretty boring at the beginning, to be completely honest with you. It was, yeah, I think it was Shell, AT&T. Oh, and Philip Morris was the other one. That one was the other big one that I started out with. So I'm heavy on income right out of the gate with to try and bolster that income fast. So those were my first big three, and I still hold them all.
AT&T, are you waiting to sell?
Yeah, at this point, I'm just kind of honestly just riding it out. Like it, I don't know. It's like you're in the hole. Anyway,
Might as well collect the dividend.
Yeah, the time to get out and jump ship wasn't. It has probably passed, so you might as well do it. Unless, I mean, if it doesn't turn around, if they don't keep paying down their debt, they don't keep like showing signs of improvement, then it might be time just to get out and put those funds elsewhere. But they're still in the midst of the second turnaround, as you would call it, because the first turnaround spun them back and headed them in the direction where they were going to start with.
I have my my wishful thinking and my fingers crossed that maybe one day AT&T will soar again, but I also flirt with the idea of just getting rid of it, allocating that capital elsewhere. I want to go back actually to, again, where when we all first started investing, and something that happened for me, maybe it happened for you both, and maybe your portfolio is actually still growing, but it's certainly, I feel like, a contentious topic when we're talking about dividend investment portfolios, and that's the size of a portfolio. Now, some say size matters, and others will say keep it to a bare minimum, right? Quality over quantity. At first, I actually loaded up, right, when I started dividend investing, and I honestly think it was Andre Jick who inspired me to just load up on a lot of dividend stocks. And of course, in 2020, I did exactly that. Since then, I've actually been just trimming a whole heck of a lot and working my way down. It's more of a Bill Ackman approach, right? Like the 10 to 12 quality positions that are the most ideal positions that I can find and double down on. What do you guys think? Should a new investor, or even an experienced investor, should we all be focusing on, the best 10 to 20, maybe, 30, 50? I know, I was on with a fellow YouTuber who has, I think, like over 100 positions in his portfolio. But he preaches a lot about safety. What do you guys think?
Bert, you want to take it first?
Yeah, I think I think there are a few different ways you can answer this one. It depends. It is obviously the easiest one, but I get both sides of this argument very well. There's the whole, you just want to do ETFs and you want to outsource the management of the individual stocks to where you might own 5 to 10 ETFs that you can feel comfortable with, have the established thing. You don't have to worry about reading the individual stocks. And probably if you're new to investing and you're trying to learn about finance, I would say start with some ETFs until you get comfortable, start until you're getting excited, and then move into individual stocks once you feel comfortable, once you want to. But I also understand the side too. If you want to just own the stocks yourself, you want to test out, hey, I'm going to learn how to analyze a company's financials. You're going to analyze the balance sheet, the income statement, cash flows. You're going to read all the research. Then heck yeah, that's a lot of fun to do. It just takes up time. It's time to monitor. It just depends what you want to do and how much time you want to commit to it. But I wouldn't suggest like 2 or 3 stocks. I'd say at least like 10 to 15 to diversify a little bit if you're going to go in the individual stock route. And what do you think, Lanny?
Yeah, it's always a tough question. It's funny. It's like, oh yeah, it's a common question, but I think it's like a hard question. If you have the mentality of like, hey, I don't want to focus on what I own, I want to focus on making more income, different sources, then yeah, just buy the ETFs and chill. Maybe you could buy, I know I've got like the Vanguard trifecta right now. I call it the trifecta, you betcha. I've got the Vanguard VOO, the VIG, and the VYM. Kind of get a good mix of, a little bit of growth yield and, obviously dividend growth as well on that. And obviously, being full disclosure on our portfolios, I know I own probably 60 or give or take, stock positions. Do I like that I own 60? I don't. I honestly, I think it's a lot of tickers. And a lot of, probably 10 of those have come from spinoffs. And Bert will laugh because as we were recording some videos earlier, I messaged Bert like, gosh dang, I got another spinoff company that I didn't even know about from like 6 weeks ago. From MDU Resources. Thanks a lot. So I think it's looking at the positions. Obviously, Ari, it sounds like you've, been trimming, maybe removing yourself, getting down to that 10 to 12. I think if you want to own what you use and understand, the 10 to 12 probably then makes sense, right? Like, oh yeah, I understand McDonald's, they own a lot of, land, and obviously there are stores on top of it that they, gosh, what a monster, you own, Bert's got the AT&T stock, I got the AT&T stock, we all do. We understand it's telecommunications. It's not like it's a secret to what they do. AbbVie, Pfizer, oh yeah, they're pharmaceutical, they sell, different types of drugs. So you can own like, large industries by just owning, a stock in that industry that you know and understand and maybe even use. The Procter & Gamble stories, the Pepsi stories. So I really think it depends on what your mindset is. If you want to manage those positions, or are you trying to manage other income that you can just move into, ETFs and really not worry about it.
Yeah. And like one thing I've been doing too is slimming down some of my positions as well. Because over the years I'd accumulate like some that are like $500, 600, where you start and then the stock price just jumps. And well, there goes building that position slowly. And it's just, for me, it's like I'm at the point where I just want some larger substantial positions. I don't necessarily want all of these small ones where the dividend checks are like $8. I'd rather take that, consolidate them into some larger, more substantial positions. But
you gotta love when you see some of these dividend paychecks come in, even, on my videos. It's like, how do you make $2.35 sound exciting? You're like, and this company just paid me $2.
Yeah, watch me.
Something very funny, actually. I was just looking at the dividend income in July, and I dove into. Sometimes you accidentally do buy shares, and so because I'll manage the portfolio for my wife and her individual account, and must have accidentally bought one share of Leggett and Plot, and then all of a sudden I see a 49-cent dividend, and I'm like, gosh, dang it.
Where the magic is really happening here.
Yeah.
49 cents, baby, not even 2 quarters.
Now, both of you you spoke about ETFs and indexes, and that is how I started. And from there, I know I wouldn't change actually a single thing about my journey in dividend investing. I feel like I had built a very solid foundation, when I call it foundation, in my portfolio with VTI. And since then, I've only been continuously adding to that position, but I really do feel it's a solid foundation for my portfolio. No matter what I add to that foundation holds strong. Now, I want to know if you two are both holding, and I know you are, ETFs, but which ones are you holding, and which ones do you consider to be like your foundational ETFs or indexes?
Yeah. After you, Lanny. I mean, you had your you have your trifecta.
Yeah. Well, all right. So it's it goes without probably no shock to anybody. You guys don't have to grip your seats or put your coffee, water, tea down on this one, beer maybe. But Vanguard's high dividend yield ETF VYM is kind of now a full cement slab down on the foundation. Represents about 10% of my taxable account. And for me, I get a lot of responses. Why not SCHD? Why not DGRO? Why not this one? And for me, it's a 3 to 3.25% yield with a 6 to 8% dividend growth. And for me, it's like, that's kind of, what I envision and what my portfolio looks like in general. And I kind of keeping that base so that base is moving in that same type of pattern is solid. And then when it gets to the retirement accounts, any 401k plan, even when I have colleagues or friends or relatives ask me, I just go, just put in the S&P 500 or total market index fund. If there's an option, it's going to be your lowest cost. Just set that and forget it. So in the retirement account, it's just S&P 500 stuff.
Yeah, and that's where I have it's the same thing for the retirement accounts, S&P 500 funds, whichever one they offer, because each one has their own unique. We've been buying for my wife, I moved it to SCHD just to start with that experiment, change it up. I've been adding 2 shares per week for her, so she's up to 60 something now. And then I have in my other account, we've done a few update videos on it. I rolled over some money from an old 401k into a Roth, and I just split it 50-50 with VYM and SCHD at the same time. So I'm just kind of tracking the performance to see which one's doing better to start, since we did the cost basis. So those are my big ETFs that we have.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love solid foundations. I've been watching a lot of videos, honestly, in the last 5 days or so about, an SPY, just the standard S&P fund. And I mean, talk about an indestructible, fund to just invest into and literally forget about it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people overlook it. I know I do. I still literally overlook it, even though it's so solid of a fund.
Yeah. I've been doing VOO pretty much every day in one of my brokerage accounts. And seeing that position just churn and burn is just, it's like, okay, you feel good that, okay, you got whatever the market's doing, you're getting a piece of it. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Sure. I want to go a little bit more personal because actually it's both of you have mentioned, and I know in many of your videos, you always talk about how your partners, or wives are heavily invested as well. And first of all, kudos, that is awesome. My girlfriend does not invest. She wants me to, invest, on her behalf. She also, she's from the UK. So I feel like I need to study, right? Things that are happening in the UK, their brokerage accounts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I have to know, and I'm sure a lot of viewers out there, right, when they're with their partners and they're trying to double down on investing, can you let us in on, how you cracked the code to let your partners open up the door to investing as well? Or how did you gauge their interest? Are there any, let's get even a little deeper. Are there any moments like riffs that you have with them that it's like, don't invest there, like stay away from those stocks, but that's where they want to invest?
I mean, I'd say it's part of the discussion to buy in with it. So and I think part of what at least makes it easy with my wife too is we'll tell her, but it's also the same reason why I got sold on dividend investing when talking to Lanny. It's you're buying things, you're putting money into things that they make sense and that they can see and they can understand, and have pride in that they own it. Like we buy all the stuff for our kids. A Target, for example. Like my wife and I are happy knowing that we have a huge position in Target, that we have over 100 shares now, but we also shop there all the time. We get all of our diapers, everything else from there. So it feels good for my wife too, to have those positions that she feels good about. And I bought Philip Morris before we were married, but she's also in the medical field. So like the one thing she always asks me is, I just don't want to buy tobacco. Like that's the one thing. So I haven't really bought any.
She tripled down on tobacco for her.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the opposite.
Yeah.
She's a huge smoker.
Yeah. Okay. And you did a wink and you just.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's the understanding there too, and just making sure there's full alignment between the two. And she also likes the pharmaceutical stock. She'll make fun of me and how I pronounce all the medications in the companies when I try to read them to her, and she gets a kick out of it. So it's a lot of discussion, a lot of making sure you're aligned, and just bringing them along on the journey too. It's not like a behind the black wall you're doing this. I don't know if after you, Lanny, I've talked enough now.
No, I think I remember. So I was like, "Oh, hey, my name's Lanny. Nice to meet you. By the way, you better be a dividend investor."
Yeah, Lanny's also Italian, so he wasn't going to take no for an answer with it.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. No, I mean, if we just started in a Hell in a Cell match, and I was like, all right, like, there's only one way out of this.
And she walks right out the door.
I'm like, dang it.
Should have locked it.
Yeah, she just gave me the low blow.
Yeah.
It really came down to buying what she enjoys, right? So she doesn't do it quite as much anymore, but she used to drink a lot of Starbucks coffee. So I was like, all right, you should buy some Starbucks. So I'm going to TJ Maxx, just to browse. I promise I'm just browsing. So she owns, the Starbucks, the TJ Maxx stock, a lot, the stocks that she's like aware of, I forget certain products from like Pepsi. So I was like, oh yeah, like that's a stock that you could own. So it started with that when we were building out her like individual taxable account. So, they all haven't been winners. Like I think she owns, unfortunately, like Nordstrom, ticker symbols JWN, which I don't think has done, remotely okay even. And then she's unfortunately also owned, because I think she used to like Banana Republic clothing, like the Gap. And, they've had some turmoil, especially with Kanye's, mess. So they all haven't been winners, but at least we started buying her some dividend stocks that she would shop at and owned and used. And then now for the most part, Ari, she's okay with, just doing VYM every week in the taxable, and then, picking and choosing when a stock is on sale that she currently owns, which obviously her portfolio is much slimmer than mine from the number of positions, definitely less than half the amount that I own. So then her stocks are, kind of the stocks that always do well when you think about it, the Pepsis, the McDonald's, I think TJ Maxx has done fairly well recently, so it's been hard to buy back into some of these positions she has.
I think it's making it fun too. It's like that's part of it. It's relatable, it's fun, and it's worked. It's worked.
Are there like weekly meetings? Like I know for me, like I said, I'm not yet investing, my girlfriend's money, but we actually sit down together. We're both, frugal, and we have our budget together, and she's actually very engaged, with the finances, which I love. The next step is dividend investing, right? But I'd be curious
Getting that
if, like,
budget,
you guys
that's
are
huge.
sitting down with your wives, or what's that look like?
So I create like this fake office and I go, it's time.
Yeah.
Jeff and we actually have somebody scribing the minutes to the finance meeting of the house.
Your AI bots.
No, I think so Ari, first off, awesome. I mean, getting the budget and working through like the income and expense, I know that for somebody maybe that doesn't come with heavily like, oh, I love this mentality, it's not like an easy thing to get your counterpart to want to do. So nice job.
She hates the budget. I'll make that clear. She hates it.
Yeah, it's important.
And so we check in, about 2 times a month about, okay, here's how much we have spent. This is how much we might still have left remaining to save. We'll go over, like, do we want to put more towards like our down payment fund because we've been looking for a house for all of eternity? Do we want to, because we have a toddler, do we want to put more into his, in the States here, we have the 529 plan, which is like a college plan. Do we want to, again, put more money into our, taxable accounts? So we do go through that probably about twice a month. Usually I do like a mid-month check-in. It's probably going to happen either later for us here on Eastern time, this evening or tomorrow. And then we'll do one towards like the end of the month. And, we'll make sure we try to allocate every single dollar in our house so that we know like it's for something, like it's for the college, it's for our down payment, it's for investing, or, oh yeah, we have like a trip that we're planning, so let's put, a few dollars there. So we try to make every dollar like count towards something versus just, we might have saved, we might have spent it.
Yeah. And for us, we don't have like, we'll meet a couple of times a month, but I was going to joke and say like, we put the kids to bed. It's like 11:30 at night. And I'm like, all right, let's sit down and talk through our investments right now. I think she would kill me, but like, that's where a lot of the updates will happen casually too. Like, oh yeah, we bought this stock these 2 days. Hey, our portfolios are here. Our income's here. There's a lot of like small communications that we have throughout so that we're making sure she knows that it's not just money going somewhere else. It's from there. So it's interesting.
One thing kind of just to also just chime in is, I think one thing that we haven't done as well with, and that I'm trying to, obviously plan and figure out, is like to celebrate wins, celebrate like milestones. Like, all right, I hear you're about, it sounds like you're about to crack, a couple 100,000 here. Like celebrate that, like celebrate some small wins, along the way. And I think that's something that we haven't done. And it's like, dang it, like, well, we can't, we can make up obviously and do like a big celebratory, one, but like, we want to start celebrating some of the small wins.
Yeah, I think everyone can be better at that. Yeah,
I think my girlfriend celebrates for the both of us.
Wow.
She's in the UK now. I could say it's okay. I could say, empty house here.
Love it.
No, I think it's so important, and it clicked when we were talking moments ago, and you guys were mentioning your partners. But I feel like before someone even gets to investing, it's even a step, maybe 10 steps before investing, is like get your finances in order. And most importantly, like, I know through the University of Hard Knocks, right, and just being out there dating, long ago, where it was like, hey, if a girl is not on the same financial path as I am, perhaps it's not it's going to be a great relationship that I can really enter into. And I just think it's so beautiful that you two have highlighted that for us, because I don't think a lot of people think about that.
No, and it's such an important part of it too, because it can be the best thing, and it can also cause the most stress if you're not fully aligned on it. So making sure you're all on board and you're working on the same page couldn't be more important.
It's amazing.
I mean, get a lot of good luck, I would say. And I couldn't imagine it I guess any other way, and very communication obviously is key.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I also 2 income streams, right? For me, I have like 3 income streams, but she brings another one in, and it's like you're both doubling down on this goal. It's really, I mean, it's something beautiful. But that talk for another episode. I'll bring it back to when we all first started investing. I think one of my biggest I'm going to say regret, right? Because I just said I don't know if I would regret anything or do anything different, but having so many positions in my portfolio, I've also learned a lot throughout this journey of my own as an investor. I've spoken about it, from video to video here and there, but I'd love to know, on your investment journeys, what are some of the, 1 or 2, 3 highlights that you have that you perhaps perfected over the span of time, or you would have avoided, regrets, looking back, any insights you can give us, because you're both absolutely killing it on this game. And we all have a lot to learn. So,
yeah.
Bert, you want me to go? You want to go? You tell me, brother.
Rock, paper, scissors for it? No.
All right. One of the first big lessons, honestly, it's the same lesson that so many probably, not to say that have been doing this for a long time, is like, dang it, I wish I would have done more. Or, and again, you're not going to win every position, right? But when you have a very strong inclination, it's okay to, invest a lot at once as well. Maybe that was some of the things that I was always hesitant on doing. Still am, because dollar cost averaging has made it now way too easy to throw in $5, $10, $1. But yeah, I think it was just to do more, earlier, because like I said, when we talked about the Visa and Lockheed Martin positions in my portfolio, dang it, I wish I had 10 more of those, So that's like the first, I think, big lesson, that, and that's why I've probably done more now in the last 4 years, just because, knowing that then, like, gosh, I can't change that now, but I can't change the past, but I can change it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Lanny, do you know what lesson I'm going to say? Do you know what story I want to tell, right?
I don't know if it's about Vera Reed or what.
It's about Vera Reed. All right. One of the lessons I learned was early on was don't chase yield, and dividend history matters. And I learned this one pretty on because we were investing in REITs. And this was a time where I was looking at either Realty Income or one that was called ARCP that's now Vera Reed. And
Vera Reed was bought out by
Realty Income. That's right. It came full circle. ARCP turned into Vera Reed.
Full disclosure, I think I warned Bert on this, but
you did, but I was stubborn. You're not the only stubborn one, Lanny. I can be stubborn too. So what happened was ARCP was like the new REIT, and it was growing fast, and it was acquiring buildings left and right. And it took on a lot of debt, and it had a yield that was at least 2% higher than Realty Income. So I'm like, oh, this is sweet. I'm going to get in the ground level of this new REIT that's replicating exactly what Realty Income's doing, but they're doing it fast. Fast forward 2 years, a few accounting scandals later, it looks like they fudged some numbers a little bit on the back end. The stock tanked. They stopped paying a dividend. They changed their name to get out of it, to Vera REIT. And then, as Lanny said, I think it was a year or 2 ago, Realty Income actually acquired them and then spun off half their division and kept all their single properties. So the lesson of the story was I ignored almost everything of what our stock screener is, looking at the long-term history. I didn't look at the historical earnings, historical growth, the FFO to payout ratio. I just instead chased the yield, and I got burned by it. So that's why now you don't always have to pick the highest yielding dividend stock out there. You can pick a great company that might yield a little less, but has a much better track record of paying and growing that dividend.
Great lessons.
Yeah, this is going to be one wild last lesson, Ari, and it's probably something that people don't say often. And there's one experience I could kind of capitalize on is there was a time when, yeah, Bert and I, we were still working together at the same accounting firm. And I think I had what? Did I have $1 or $2 in my bank account, Bert? What was it?
I can't remember. It wasn't much.
Yeah, it was less than $5, because I wanted to invest like as much as I could. And you figure out ways to still survive. So even after, if you have your emergency fund of X dollars or X months worth, I know there's probably 98% of us that probably still have excess. So don't be afraid to push yourself because, yeah, it feels weird. Yeah, it feels scary. But I think that's when you have to you would open your mind up to figure out a new way to make things work, to stretch something or to like, sell something on a Facebook, for like $50 in case something hits the fan or, so don't be afraid to push yourself because that's when you probably learn and grow the most.
Love that. It's it reminds me a lot of Jason Fieber's story. I had him on not too long ago, and he was just sharing like how he ate ramen noodles for a whole year. And health-wise, I would not advise that to anybody. Get stock advice. Just be careful with your health. But
McCormick makes salt if you know.
I think that is, I mean, all very, very valid, points that we're raising here for all investors, whether experienced or beginner investors. And, okay, so that's the past. And looking into the future now, we have at the current point in time, we have interest rates that are most likely going to notch up by, another X, whatever it may be when the next FOMC meeting comes about. We are hovering right now, right? Even though inflation came down, it's still above that Fed goal of 2% at 3%. When I look into the future, and I'm no Nostradamus, I can't predict anything, right? But looking at the next 6 months, closing out 2023, I feel like there may be more volatility with some more uncertainty already building up. Jerome Powell even says it. He was at a forum in Europe, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and he had shared that there's going to be most likely a downturn coming over, a significant downturn. And I think if we're keyed into a lot of these messages as investors, we can prepare. Now, on one hand, being dividend investors, right, it's like we love the volatility. And on the other hand, just being investors, I got to know if you two are thinking about macros, if they matter at all for you. I'm a fan of saying macros matter to the extent that if we understand what's going on at the macro level, we can start to look at the right sectors and the right stocks. It's not about timing the market, but just having that understanding of the market, what's going on, to look in the right places. What do you two think is coming about for us at the end of 2023? How would you invest? Like, what's the move here that you're making?
I mean, I think you hit on the point, though. I think before we get to the answer, like the whole paying attention to the macro, so you're aware of what's going on and you can spot the value that may be there, is huge. And that's why you should pay attention as much as you can, because especially when there's a mismatch in the short term for these long-term companies, like if you can pick a time where you see news come out that causes, for example, like Procter and Gamble to drop like by an irrational amount, you're going to invest with a long-term mindset with Procter and Gamble for 50 years. You're not concerned about what's happening in 3 months. So I think it's a good way to spot potential value. Before we go into the next part of the question.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree first off, Ari, that I think the next, again, not to be a downer here, but yeah, I think there's going to be some volatility because of time, because I don't think the markets, businesses, and consumers have actually felt all of the increases yet. You could say in the mortgage and real estate market, yes, but have all of the businesses passed on, have they felt first off the increase in rates? And then have they had the ability yet to now price accordingly to the market? And have the consumers, endured that yet? So I always think there's a little bit of a lag here, to call it 2+ months lag of what the consumer has been feeling. So I think that there could be some pain, but I always see there's opportunity everywhere. Rates, yeah, more than likely we're going to get that increase here within a couple of weeks from the Fed. And then, it could be somewhere this time next year where you might see rates, really declining if all goes according to plan. But you can always find an opportunity, as you know, you and Bert were both saying, in the right industries. So consumer goods, you know, might be priced okay right now, because if things get worse, people still consume your basic necessary goods. Utilities, people still consume, you know, electricity, energy, you know, et cetera. So I think utilities have been punished a little bit so far this year.
Yeah, and I think the one thing to add to it is student loan payments are about to start up again for the first time in 3 years for then. That's about $1.5 trillion of loans that are have to start getting paid upon. And people, judging by how you're seeing with the trends in consumer debt, there's going to be some trade-offs that are going to have to happen when you start having multiple hundreds, some people even thousands of dollars every month going towards those that you can't spend on all this stuff too, which will have economic effects that we don't necessarily know yet either.
Godspeed to all those who recently graduated, paying off student loans. Get to them before you even invest.
Yeah.
Wow. What would you guys say is that your next moves here as we move into the remainder of 2023? Are you changing your investment style at all? Are you just doubling down? Are you waiting? Are you cash heavy? Like what's the preparation like?
Lanny's going all AI stocks the rest of the year. Just straight.
You know, I saw AT&T at 14 and I said, give me some more of that.
Bring it.
Pour into AT&T.
I did. Well, how picture that headline: Lanny from the Dividend Diplomats risks it all. But
with AT&T.
yeah, Lanny, the telecom guy. You know, the stocks that I'm keeping my eye on, and kind of how I'm going to keep doing my automatic ETFs of the Vanguard ETFs, VYM, VIG, VOO, because at the end of the day, I'm not Nostradamus. I can't predict what is going to happen. So I'm going to grab it, whether it goes up, whether it goes down. Always be buying, as we've been saying and preaching on our channel. You know, I have price points on stocks like Archer Daniels Midland, you know, soon to be Dividend King, ticker symbol is ADM. You know, would like them a few dollars cheaper than where they are now. You know, Kroger closing on the big Albertsons acquisition, surprise us with a nice dividend increase. I think they're doing a lot of great things at Kroger, ticker symbols KR. Hormel, I've been a big fan of this dividend aristocrat. Got you know, if it was a couple dollars lower than where they are, just because of the food that they produce is, you know, it's used in restaurants and by everyday households. So, you know, really like those couple companies that I'm watching.
Yeah, and that's pretty much to echo that. It's just stay the course, just keep looking for great high quality dividend stocks. And when times are tough, I'm looking for ones that have shown that they can keep increasing those dividends through good times and bad. Just to keep saying that line over and over again, is you focus on quality when there's potential economic uncertainty.
So I'm always saying my investment criteria, no matter what the economic climate, is always coming down to great leadership, management, companies that have very strong, reputable brand names, and of course, a clean balance sheet. I want to wrap up just two more questions here. Now, both of you actually mentioned some of the stocks you're currently looking into, but let's say right now I handed you $10,000 and you had to bet it all on just one stock. Which one would it be?
Stock or ETF? No ETFs, I'm guessing?
No ETFs. Let's just go stock.
Oof. All right. That's fair. 10,000.
Just look, you know, some tickers up.
I swing it at the hip, right? Let's go Archer Daniels, ticker symbol ADM, throw 10,000 there, get above average dividend yield with above average dividend growth, almost Dividend King.
There we go.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking, yeah, I mean, Archer Daniels is a great one. If you're talking $10,000 for what I would, well, that is a good question. What would I go with right now? I just think about this one for a second.
You can,
yeah, no, I mean,
the Bank of America.
Like, no, Bert's like, no way, I'm not touching that. Verizon.
Yeah, Verizon all day. I mean, look, if you're gonna give me 10,000, I'm gonna flock to something. I'm not necessarily gonna say, hey, this one's the cheapest, but I mean, I would honestly go back to looking one of my old reliables, Johnson and Johnson right now. That's the one I built up to 100 shares. It's at 158 right now. It's kind of hovering. They're going to have their spinoff coming. They're working their way through some of their lawsuits and legal issues. If it would be 10,000, set and forget it. I guess I've proven that I've done that once before by getting it to 100 shares. So I wouldn't back away from that strategy at all.
Johnson
We've got that.
One of my
Yeah,
favorites.
we've got that spinoff stock. Ari, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not getting out of the hot seat on this one, Ari.
Yeah. Woo. I've actually invested quite a lot into 3 companies rather recently. Devon Energy, Tyson,
right.
which has been like very contentious.
Yeah.
And Stanley Black and Decker. And you know what? I've actually seen quite a return on Stanley Black and Tyson so far. And I want to throw it out there. I might go Tyson.
I love it. I just built Tyson up to 100 shares. That's been my big one this year. I got Tyson there. I love that company. And I think it's just one that people are always going to be buying their products. They're always going to be buying the chicken, and they're going to get some, once we get through the uncertainty and costs come down, there's a potential shot for Tyson.
I feel like it's so under the radar. Of course, their management too isn't helping anything whatsoever rather recently. But, I feel like with feed prices that are off the charts, cost for shipping and transit ridiculously high right now. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to pure economics. And, I've been looking too at the last 5-10 years and watching, how Tyson performed. Look, it's going to take some time. Time will take time. But if I had 10,000 right now, I'd beef up my portfolio with some Tyson. So.
Nice little pun there. Beefing it up with Tyson. Nice.
Yeah. Now I want to close out with actually one tip that, it's very similar to this last question here, right? If you had your 10,000, where would you invest it? But leave us all with one tip that you would gift to either experienced investors or beginner investors, whether it's, for the remainder of this year, whether it's just for investing in general. What's one tip that you can share with us that can help all of us on our own investment journeys?
All right. One tip is, obviously, if you really want to catapult, if you want to retire early, you want to reach financial freedom early, really push yourself to get that, you work on getting that savings rate, I would say, and this is going to be aggressive. You can get it to 50% somehow, because if you can discipline yourself from a cost standpoint, you can get there. Then you can just start adding in more forms of income, Ari. Like, you've got many different avenues. But if you're able to control, like, kind of, okay, I know what my base expenses are, and use everything else towards investing early or now, I would, that's my tip.
Yeah. And then I fully agree with Lanny's tip. So if he wouldn't have said it, that's where I was going to go with it. But I would also say the importance of consistency would be the one I would say. It's like, so to parlay off of what Lanny's saying, you're building this 50% savings rate. You're getting everything in line to get money to invest. You also have to invest it, and you also have to consistently invest it too. So build the regimen, get it so that you're setting purchases weekly. And the big piece is you don't have to start with a lot of money either. It could be, if you found $10 extra every week, invest that $10 every week. Just get into the habit of saving, because then it's going to become infectious. You're going to want to do more. You're going to want to grow it as much as you can. But your portfolio is not going to grow if you stop and you don't commit to it and you're not consistent with your investing.
I love it. Consistency is of course, always key. Investors, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure to have both Bert and Lanny on with me here, the Dividend Diplomats. Now, of course, like I said way earlier on here, they have their actual own blog. They have Seeking Alpha articles that are out there. And of course, they have their own YouTube channel as well, which will be linked there in the pinned comment and description. Check them out. I know I'm always watching them for new stock ideas as well. Investors, until the next video, we will see you all there.